do so. Father, thank you once again for the many blessings that you bestowed on us. Father, be with us as we go through these proceedings and help us make the decisions that are right and proper to move our school district forward. All these things we ask in His name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I know Mr. Pearson and Ms. Crawley are on their way and will be here shortly. And we have a couple of folks out of town that are taking care of family and or that will be out taking care of family and other issues. Tonight, this is strictly a budget session, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Dawkins at this time.
Thank you, President Ramsey and members of the board. Again, we're here to continue our discussion with the budget. You have a copy in front of you and it's available to you online. Let me make a few comments, and we'll have Mr. Lee to come up and to give you an overview, and we'll take any questions and concerns that you may have. So I want to, there are 3 or 4 items that you need to be aware of. One, there's been some question raised about the legality of the budget, and can assure you that the budget is within its legal guidelines and timelines, and I'll let Mr. Abrams and Mr. Lee elaborate on that. Number 2, there's an awful lot of discussion from Baton Rouge on the MFP formula, as well as the vouchers, returning money for vouchers with the recent court decisions. We have no idea how much we'll get, although we know how many students were in this area for vouchers, I think around 88, but we have no idea when we'll get it or if we'll get it. So Mr. Lee is certainly budgeted conservatively for that, but we are waiting, and we would certainly welcome the money, and we're watching it very closely every day, as a matter of fact, to see whether or not the MFP formula yields us any more money, or whether the voucher decision, where they're invalidated, whether that brings us any more money as well. So I want to make sure that board members knew that we were being vigilant about that. Number 3, planning time, an awful lot around the modified block schedule and the planning time is associated with that. I'll let Mr. Abrams talk about that as well. And we have Ms. Turner, who's also Mr. Lee, who will speak to that as well. The 4th, we're continuing to work, as we always have, with this budget, and just want to make the board aware that we have found ways through this work to restore some of the instructional specialist positions. I think we're up to about 9 now. There's a rumor out that there were 0. They were wiped out. We had 3, and then we had 4, and at my last count, we were up to 9. So we continue to work on that, and we'll continue to work on that to the end until we get it in your hands. The budget that you have, I'm continuing to work with Dr. White, Barzana White, and Dr. Lockett, because there's some things that we've been able to do with moving positions around and funding around that I think will yield some pretty good results. Finally, the document that you have certainly will be adjusted, but the bottom line numbers are pretty much the same. We think we can make adjustments by approving this budget even after it's done, like we do every single year. So what you have in front of you is what you have in front of you, and we feel pretty good about it. Mr. Lee, why don't you come up and give them that overview? Dr. Robinson is going to take my place. I have to move out for a minute, and I'll be back as soon as I'm done about this. Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Dr. Dawkins, President Ramsey, board members, and members in the audience. You have at your station a copy of the budget package that you're used to seeing. It's not in color yet, but you do have the full package, and there are copies available for the audience. I'd just like to start first with a few comments about the legality of this budget, whether or not it was properly advertised. And Mr. Abrams can address this more if he would like, but basically the law As I understand it, it has to be available for inspection by the public 15 days prior to adoption. It has been available. There's the cover letter that goes with the budget each year is on board docs, and it shows all the work sessions we've had. And I believe August 11th was the day that we gave you the first real budget. We had a meeting before that in March, but mainly just gave you some background information and some projections on revenue. But at the April 11th meeting, we did give you our first summary budget, and we had a copy of all the detail in our office that was available. If anybody asked, nobody asked. If it was available, that was more than 15 days prior to our planned adoption tomorrow night. The second part is advertising, and the law reads that it must be advertised 10 days in your official journal, in your official journal, 10 days prior to the first public hearing on the budget. We have not yet had a public hearing on the budget. All we've had is work sessions. Our first and only public hearing, unless it for some reason does not get adopted tomorrow night, is tomorrow night. We advertised this on May 10th, which is more than 10 days prior to the first public hearing. So, as I see it, this is a legal budget from that standpoint. Thank you, Mr. Rich.
Mr. Abrams, could you address the planning time issue?
The statute provides, and the regulation provides, that there be 45 minutes of playing time per day or the weekly equivalent. It was originally enacted back in 1988, and the statute at that time had to have a committee that was formed in order to determine how that could possibly happen. I don't have a history as to what happened in Caddo back then, but the main proviso of the statute was that it must be funded by the state, and it must be designated as funded by the state, that planning time, in order for it to be effective. They can, at this point in time, I don't know whether or not they've included it in, I certainly don't believe it's MFP funding, but I believe the statute would require that they have to designate that a certain amount of money is for planning time. Caddo Parish has had 30 minutes of planning time for elementary school teachers, but has never had in its policy 45 minutes for middle school or high school. It's up to the board as whether to do that or not if the state does not fund the planning time. So I've had Mr. Lees to check and make sure as to whether or not it is required under the statute. So if there's no funding, then it's not required. The other issue also is that the proposal was to do 90 minutes every 2 days, the way it was set up. My understanding from the superintendent was that he intended to have it continue over, since it's 5 days a week. Of course, you're only going to have 90 minutes, then 90 minutes by Thursday, then it will carry over to the next week. It should work out over a 2-week period that if you carry over those 90 minutes, that you would have a weekly equivalent of 45 minutes a day if you were to do it that way. Of course, if Caddo Parish does that, then you're getting something that I don't believe the statute necessarily requires. It would be something that the board would be deciding they wanted to have if it does change the policy. Of course, policy G right now is being modified. In the last modification meeting we had, no one brought up or decided that they wanted to put in the planning time for middle school and high school. We did also leave it in there for the elementary school, so I'm sure that's something that could be brought up to the board. But to say it's legally required, I don't think it is, unless there was money that's attached to it.
Thank you. Now, again, board members, if you want to ask Mr. Lee some questions, get on the board, and I'm going to do it a little differently. 2 minutes was not really long enough, so I'm going to go to 5 minutes. You'll each have 5 minutes, and then we'll rotate speakers. That way it'll give you time to really get into it a little bit. So, first one on the board is Ms. Bell, and you have 5 minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes on my first one, and then you come back to me another. But can I have a question with Mr.
We will be here up to 5:30.
Okay,
and
fine.
then we'll
Can I
cut it
ask a question, Mr. Abrams, before I ask Mr. Lee? And everything
Yeah, that's part of your questions, though. Let's go.
So you get a chance to ask Mr. Amy some questions.
You're wasting time.
Ooh, go on, Mr. President. Okay, Mr. Lee. Can I ask Mr. Lee a question, Dr. Ross?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Lee,
Yes, ma'am.
I asked you, and I just want to thank you for this mileage reimbursement, because right now my mind is truly on just trying to cut money, okay? Okay. I'm looking at your mileage. Tell me first, how do you pay mileage? You do it, it's according to how people travel from these different people, like the regular ed teacher, gifted teacher, special ed teacher, homebound, I got all this list. First, how do you pay that? And don't talk too long, because my 5 minutes be going, I gotta say.
I'll be as brief as I can.
Okay.
First of all, the employee keeps a log of the trips that they make between Caddo Pierce School District locations. Does not include any mileage from their home to their first work site or vice versa, last work site back home. They will fill that out, sign it, get their supervisor and I believe director to approve it as well, and then it goes to the accounts payable department to be paid.
How much we pay a mileage? A mile?
I believe it's 51 cents a mile right now.
Is that it? Okay. Okay, I'm looking at the way that we can trim. I know we can't trim it now, but we can do it because I'm looking at the total mileage reimbursement for everybody that travels. That's from Human Resources Communication, $243,899.10. Okay, I'm looking at the homebound, hospital homebounds, $18,757, and I'm sure that is because you have homebound teachers. I'm looking at counselors, like $1,837. Looking at special ed by itself is $87,971.57. Then you have it also broken down as pupil appraiser, $22,000, instructor staff service, $18,000. I'm adding this up. Just with those three is $128,623.13 of travel. What I'm asking now, the $87,000 is, well, it can't be because you got it separate. Now, if we look forward, okay, they're saying. Now, like I mentioned the last time, is this possible? Last time that those instructional staff, if we place them in a school, all of them placed in a school, that means travel will stop for them, right? They'll be placed there.
If they were full-time at a single school, yes,
Okay.
ma'am, that would.
A single time, and if that principal is willing, that they will be on hand to do all what we need. Because I've heard, and I mean, this is a question, I've heard them, some parents say that call me and say, Ms. Bell, I can't have my meeting until this certain day because the instructor supervisor will not be there or the pupil appraiser will not be there. So I'm looking at the fact that we may be able to have $128,000, cut that in half, okay? Now let's look at the nurses. Nursing, that's $9,220. Okay, I thought we had, how the nurses, I didn't know the nurses travel. Are they being at certain schools or what?
Oh, they travel. They travel.
They travel.
Oh, they travel
They go
from,
from
if
school
a
to
school
school.
need a nurse, they go, okay, and that's probably necessary. I'm just looking at some, okay, we're looking at librarians. Now, what librarians travel for $1,847? They have traveling librarians?
I'd have to look at that in more detail, Ms. Bell, I honestly.
Okay, but it's, okay, like I say, supervisors will be the one
Yes,
that,
ma'am.
okay.
Yes, ma'am.
But I'm just saying, well, I'm looking at a lot of it, I'm surprised, I'm looking for attendance department to have 100,000. So them were the ones that had to go to them meetings, and them bad children,
Well,
they only have 8,000 they spent.
they have, they may not be the best, but
Yeah.
they have some vehicles that they can.
Oh, okay,
they
we
can
gotta
use.
be, okay, now, I'm just looking at somewhere down the line, if we, okay, this gonna help us, cause I'm thinking if I was at a special needs child, and that person's on hand, and I need to know them, and to be at the school, but they still in that capacity of being that IS, that will help. So I'm just looking, board members, I'm looking at $243,899.10. Maybe some of these will cut down as half because everybody hollering about the money, okay? So this is what I looked at, and I do have a copy of this. Anybody else? This is everybody on here, everybody that travel, even in the cars that we have out. will these people travel? And this is the list here, I asked for that list.
Ms. Pell, just to be a little clear, that is just general fund?
General,
If there's
oh,
any
that's what I
other-
want to ask you.
If there are any
All of
other
this come
funds?
out of general fund?
Yes, ma'am.
Special, if federal don't pay for special ed travel?
Special ed has a travel allotment in the general fund.
It's in general. So this is 247,000 coming out of general fund.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, other, put them on, y'all, put them on, because I
Okay.
need it.
You have reached your limit.
Okay, then you come back to me to find
Okay,
out.
you can sign up again.
Okay, I will. Thank
Mr.
you.
Hooks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President Ramsey. Dr. Robinson, may I ask Mr. Lee a couple of questions?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lee, can you tell me how many staff jobs, what staff jobs are being cut?
Staff jobs?
Staff, yes.
As far as central office, or are you talking about
Central office.
district-wide? Central office, we're looking at some instructional supervisors, I believe 4.
What instructional supervisor?
I'm not the person to answer that. That is not, I don't know if Ms. Turner has determined that yet or not, but.
Well, how can we vote on a budget if we don't know who's being cut?
She will have to, the positions will be cut, the people will, 4 people will have to be moved by July 1. But I don't know that if she's identified those 4 yet, but she knows that she has to move 4 of them by July 1.
But you don't know.
Not yet.
But yet and still we have, but how can we come up with what we have with the
Well, it's
budget?
no different than any others. If you want to look at staffing formulas, when we say schools have X number of teachers, I don't know which exact teachers, because there'll be transfers throughout the year, but those schools know, and HR knows, that's how many positions they have, and that's what they get.
Okay, thank you. My next question, how many minutes?
You still
I'm
good?
good.
You still have about 4 minutes.
My next question, Mr. Lee, and I'm not through with that, 'cause I'll come back. Are we still considering cutting 94 jobs in special education?
Yes, sir. Now, not jobs, positions.
Positions, well, that's jobs.
Well, there, let me say,
Well, we're not gonna argue about that, whether it's job or positions. I go with you, positions.
okay,
Now, my thought is, I can't see how we can do this without getting in trouble with the state. Now, special ed people, you have to be certified and qualified to do that position. You can't depend on a principal or assistant principal or somebody on staff to do that. What we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up being in non-compliance, and we're going to end up losing money.
well, if I may answer that, a majority of these changes, the teaching positions, where we're reducing 45 to 50 teaching positions, and the 30 special ed paraprofessionals, those came from the special ed department talking to human resources on what they anticipated their needs to be next year. They tell them how many positions they need, and that was the number of reductions from this current year's budget. But that came from special ed. We didn't just arbitrarily make those cuts.
Well, before my minutes run up,
Mr. Lee, maybe Dr. Lockett could add to those comments that she was involved with it, and I'm not going to take away for that time. But I do want you to get, right from the director's mouth.
well, that's what, by me being a principal, I know how it's going to hurt if you cut those positions, aid, instructional specialist. Have you really looked at it hard? Because if we are not in compliance, we're going to be fined, and plus we're going to lose money from the state. And when you're talking about cutting special ed, you're talking about cutting a heck of a program with positions. You're talking about a heck of a cut. We couldn't find any other area than special ed to cut in.
No, sir, that was the only area that we had to cut in. The teaching positions were mostly vacancies. So, like for example, I've had at least 31 vacancies all year long that's been vacant since August. So the teacher vacancies are coming in that lieu. When we consolidated
Okay,
schools,
what about the instructional specialists?
the instructional specialists, because of my IDEA funding, there were two different things. And I'm sorry you weren't here last week, Mr. Hooks. We have two different budgets. We have a special ed.
I'm here this week, though.
Yes, sir, that's why I'm explaining it to you. We have two different budgets. We have an IDEA federal fund budget, which is earmarked for student support services, direct support to students and the services. And we have a gen fund budget, which is what Mr. Lee and Dr. Dawkins in the district is doing. I've been saying for the last, month and a half to 2 months that because of IDEA federal funding cuts and because of the sequester.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I know my time is up, so I'm not going to take up anybody else's time.
Okay, Ms. Trammell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just so that I get a good understanding, if you, Dr. Robinson, if Dr. Lockett could come back. Now, my question is sort of just to get a clear understanding. Are students assigned directly to the ISs?
No.
Okay, so
Students are assigned to behavior intervention specialists and my pupil appraisal staff. They do counseling and social work services with those children.
Right.
The instructional specialists help the school administrators and the teachers with support.
Okay, that's my question. This works well. If they're assigned into a Pacific school, and we can find a way to do that, and if they're housed in that school, would that not make their workload easier because they're assigned directly to the children that are where there's a high influx of special ed students? Would that help us?
It would make their workload
The
easier.
assignments would be the same. They get to know the parents and the students, and they get to work with the same people.
Yes, ma'am.
So
If they're
that's
assigned back to that position.
okay. Now this is what I guess. When one of the board members was talking about if we put them into the classrooms or into the school to work directly with the principal and the counselors, they would work under the same umbrella as they're working under now, or there would be a different class. Different.
They'll be evaluated by the school principal if they're put back in the classroom.
Okay.
Dr. Dawkins mentioned before he left about retaining about 9 positions.
9.
Yes, ma'am. So for the rest of those will probably go back to a classroom setting, but they'll still have, their pay will not decrease, which is what I'm told. So they'll have one school and dealing with that particular group, and those 9 will probably have multiple schools. We've had some schools in the past when we've been short of instructional specialists because of uniqueness or low IEP numbers, they've been able to function with just a lead teacher.
Okay.
So what we've done is we've looked at those numbers and say, okay, well, this particular school, if you don't have a 30, 35 IEPs, we'll have some support and they should be able to be okay.
Okay. So if we would do that, that would work. Okay. Now, thank you. That works fine. Now, this question is to Mr. Lee. Now, I've looked through the budget and I was trying to get an understanding of some of the things that we could put a hold on, or say as of this year we would eliminate some of the common practices. And one of the ones that I'm very interested in, if we would put a hold on the PR2 usage only in the necessary areas, would that help change some of the money that we spend during the year?
I'm assuming you're talking mostly about overtime PRTs,
Right.
because just to be clear, there are legitimate.
I know there are.
legitimate
Yeah.
there's
Oh, yeah,
PRTs
yeah.
for other work as well. That would be something that we could discuss between now and tomorrow with Mr. Wolfeld. Most of the people who do overtime are probably going to report to his area. Not all of it,
Okay.
probably a lot of it. I can touch base with him and get his thoughts. Unless you have any questions.
I know that they were saying that we were going to put a hold or a freeze on hiring.
Yes,
And if we could put a hold or freeze on hiring,
yes.
then look to me, we could put a hold or freeze on continuous overtime. And I say continuous overtime because in some cases we do have that.
Okay. Let me I'd just like to, I know this wasn't actually asked, but in my opinion, that is not something, even if we agreed to do that, and I'm fine with that if we can, it still wouldn't
Help
keep,
the impact.
no, it wouldn't keep this from being adopted.
Oh, no.
We could
Oh,
make
no.
an
I mean,
adjustment
this
to
is,
the budget.
yeah, down, yeah. Okay. All right, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson.
Ms. Bell?
Oh, okay, back to me again. Okay. I have a question, Mr. Lee. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am,
Mr. Lee, I asked you to give me, I mean, this number been kicking me for the past 3 or 4 weeks since we've been talking about budget. This number of absent, what we pay substitute employees. is $4,807,031, plus I forgot to add $979 to that. Somebody would calculate it quickly, do that for me while I'm talking.
5.7 million.
Huh?
5.7 million.
5.7.
5.7.
Okay, I asked Mr. Lee, board members, to show me where did this come up. Now, some of them got explanation. Okay, for instance, he gave me regular ed substitute teacher. We paid $4,268,000 to them, which was kindergarten teacher, middle school teacher, quarter, all that. Then he gave me the special ed substitute teacher, which came out, and that's different one, PTU, pre-K, gifted and talent, all of that. That came to $413,000, almost $414,000. Then he gave me also vocation ed, business teaching, all of that. That came to $29,000. Then he gave me instructions of JROTC teachers, $4,140. These are absentees that we pay people now. Counselors, substitute for counselors, $1,000 something. Substitute for librarians, $92,000. So certified subs came to, okay, also added on to four, which this describes that regular ed sub, special ed sub, vocational ed sub, then ROTC counselors and librarian came to $4,807,000, $4 million. Then he described to me the substitute for aides, special ed aides, regular aides, like sub for regular program aides are $117,000. But anyway, all that came to $177,001. Curriculum department sub clerical, business service, sub custodian maintenance the sub custodians and maintenance came to $338,000. Sub security $131,000. Then we have transportation for clerical, bus driver, bus aid. All of that came to $285,716. Then we have personnel department, clerical $23,000, technology $13,000. Altogether, the classified subs came to $979,026. Our other subs, I said, came to $4,800,000, almost $5 million. Somewhere down the line, do all of this? This is what I want to ask you. Do all of this come out of general fund?
Yes, ma'am.
That's your money, right? That's $5 million right there. But I'm not saying, I understand that people need to be answered. But I looked at this, I said, now somewhere down the line, and I knew Mr. Brown was saying, if it's $5 million, and we keep hollering $21 million in debt, we subtract that 5. We need to look, Mr. Ramsey, I know it's about some kind of way we need to look at our attendance and employees' absentee rates or something. Somewhere down the line, we causing this to happen. If people can just take off, because I feel like I'm sick, and be off a whole year and get a doctor. Oh, I'm not. Okay, you see what I'm saying? This is $5 million 1 year from the budget. See, you know, this is hardcore. And look, I know about, because I had surgery, so I know but guess what I did? I love school so much, I had surgery the day after school's out. But I was sick sometimes, I understand. And we do have 10 days and 2 for what we need to do, okay? But to me, somewhere down the line with $5 million, look like somebody, we can at least make this $3 million, but $5 million, and you got people, 400,000, for $117,000, that's for program aides, special, regular aides. Then you have people like the maintenance, $338,000. And I know some of these, I asked you, that have not been filled, so we have to pay a sub. It's like we're like long-term service. But somewhere down the line, I wish we could have said, you could give me this and said, okay, Ms. Bell, not but $3 million we spent. But to spend $5 million, these are our employees. We can't do nothing now. But we need to soon, Mr. Ramsey, we need to get something and look at this big deal on substitutes of all employees. Because this is a lot of money. Just to pay, if that's the case, shoot, we need to hire some of these people. $5 million, we could have hired a whole 200 or 300 people. But somewhere down the line, don't you agree, Mr. Lee? I'm not trying to put this in your mouth.
No, that's okay.
It's disturbing me that all of it come out of general fund.
Yeah, and then that is a lot of money, and there's two things to consider, really a couple of things to consider with this. One, you touched on one. You've got vacant positions. You mentioned how much the bus drivers were, and Mr. Wolfo, correct me if I'm wrong, do we have about 20 or 30 routes being run by subs every day? So that's going to inflate that number somewhat because we don't have people filling them. Same thing with your long-term sub teachers in your classrooms where there's not a permanent teacher. But aside from that, yes, that's a lot of money. The way to, if you want to address that, you're right. You're going to have to look at attendance and absence policies and see
The
what
policies, we need to look at the policies.
the policies that we
So this
have.
is part of that deficit. This is part of our deficit, I mean, I'm sure, when you got 5 million. And also, board members, I have on this, I ran a copy for you to show you that I did some research, because it bothered me to hear that 4 million, 5 million.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. And
Oh, my time up?
yeah, your time is up, but in response, I have asked the board attorney to look at the various policies that impact attendance,
Oh, okay.
and that was something you asked me to do in the transportation committee meeting. So I have done that. Mr. Hooks.
Thank you, President Ramsey. I have some additional questions for Dr. Lockett. May I speak with that?
Yes, sir. Dr. Lockett.
You know, Dr. Lockett, I know it's no fault of yours, but I've seen our students consolidated, I've seen them outsource, and I see positions trying to be cut. And when you cut positions, you're hurting our students. And we need to put them first. We need to consider them first. We need to stop looking at the dollar sign and start thinking about those warm bodies in those classrooms. Okay, these teachers first, and instructional specialists, they don't have an 8 to 5 job. They take work home with them. I mean, they take stacks of work home. When it comes to special ed, you have to dot every I and cross every T. I know, because I was an administrator. And if we don't do that, it's going to fall back on us. Okay, let's say you take the A's out of the classroom. When the IEP conference comes up, who's going to hold those students? I'm looking for an answer.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were still talking.
No, who's going to hold those students?
You talking about 30 paras, so there have been vacancies all year? They're overstaffed, matter of fact, we're a little overstaffed when it comes to Gen Fund paras in special ed. When they consolidated schools, paras were not touched during the rift or anything else.
Okay,
And as far as the special ed teachers, all they did was take the teachers and just put them in another school. So what happened was, when looking at the staff and allotment, you had 2 classes with 2 kids apiece. So you had an adult, a teacher, and a para with 2 children in a lot of different spots all over the district. So the numbers that you see are because when they consolidated, we never reduced. So we have overreach of personnel. Okay.
Now, are we sure? We're sure about that.
Yes.
Okay. My next question: why cut positions if the pay is not being affected? Where is the saving coming in?
Mr. Lee.
Savings comes in because if you had this, let's just take the IS for example.
Say what now?
Take the IS for example. If you move them one into a classroom, that is a classroom teacher that may have retired last year that you're not going to have to hire another person for. This person comes in, legally we can't cut their salary. We can freeze it, but we can't cut it. And they can go in, but we save the cost of hiring another teacher to go in that position. So there's where the savings comes from.
How much are we talking about?
For a classroom teacher, 70,000 each.
70,000?
70,000 each. That includes benefits.
Okay. Thank you, President Rand.
Ms. Green.
Thank you, Dr. Lockett. I'm sorry we're giving you. You probably should have wore your tennis shoes. Mr. Hooks, he told you to stop while you were explaining something, and I want to hear what, I wanted you to finish what you were saying. Do you remember what you were talking about then?
I was talking about the budget issue, IDEA. My federal funds were cut, and I was trying to explain to him that with the cuts in federal funds, and I had to look at positions through IDEA, Gen Fund had 14 and IDEA had 12. We were projected to have, if keeping all of the staff, $162,000 to run the whole special ed department for the entire year. That's July 1 of 2013 to June 30th of 2014. Well, $162,000, you know, will not take care of any special education needs, IDEA money. So we had to look at positions because that's where the bulk of my money was. So I had mentioned to Mr. Lee and Dr. Dawkins about working through that process, and along the lines with the district having some budget cuts, that's where the other positions came from.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I'd like to add to that. She is correct in saying that her IDEA funds have been cut. They've been cut quite a bit this coming school year. Based on the new special ed funding formula in the MFP, we will lose special ed funding in the MFP as well. That's why we had to look at some areas as well.
Okay. I'm good.
Ms. Priest?
Okay. Thank you, President Ramsey. Mr. Lee, I know there's been questions and concerns about the MFP and the vouchers and all of that as to whether or not the state has not made a decision or anything of that nature. Do we as a board, we still have to deal with the staffing and preparing for the 2013-14 school year? We can't wait until the summer, right? Because when school is going to be out in a few weeks.
I know the principals.
This week.
I know the principals would appreciate it.
So therefore, I think people need to know where they're going to be and what they're going to be assigned to. And we're talking about this budget. We already know we've not had any growth on the MFP. And even with the restoration, if there was some restoration for the 100 whatever positions, the vouchers or what have you, it is still not going to be enough money to get rid of this $21 million deficit. Will it or will it not?
It will not.
Okay. Number two, we are talking about basically some of the vacant positions. Am I not correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And dealing with attrition.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we planning to do a layoff?
No, ma'am.
Are we planning to do a RIF?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Do you see, and I know you've worked in the private sector as well, and they operate on a much leaner budget than the public sector does.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you see fat in our budget to a certain degree?
I just go back to the, I don't know if I would call it fat, but let me go back to the example that I gave y'all in a couple of the presentations where we compared student enrollments over the last 9 years to staffing for that same time period, where student enrollments went down, staffing went up. I know there were some programs added that affected that, but still, if you're comparing us to a private company, I don't think that would ever happen.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Dr. Lockett. It's your day. Looking at the budget or works that we had last week on the 14th, and we looked at the various positions and what have you, and we're talking about individuals going back into the classroom.
Yes,
Correct?
ma'am.
And some of those individuals who would be going back into the classroom, what basically is it that these individuals are doing on a day-to-day basis now?
Currently, they're writing IEPs for our interim and initial IEPs. They're serving schools, participating on IEPs, advocating for students,
Okay.
Attending our manifestation determination reviews for our students with disabilities who have behavior concerns.
Okay.
They kind of ODR on a whole lot of all of that information.
So it's a paper, and of course, it's definitely needed.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, into the classroom, that's where they say the rubber meets the road, and that's where the children are, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you, and I know this may be putting you on the spot, would you consider it more beneficial to have those individuals actually on site dealing with students because they do have the certifications and what have you to work with the students?
Be very beneficial. We'll have a few ISs, like Dr. Dawkins mentioned about the 9, and possibly 4 on my end to retain for program-specific reasons, but it'll be very beneficial for those persons to serve students in the classroom setting.
Okay. Thank you, and that's, do I still have a little, Mr. Brown? Am I still, or do I need to come back? Okay. Looking at this was looking at technology, information technology, we have technology salaries, and we have technology operations, and what have you. I'm still needing some information about how efficient that operation is with the technology that we currently have, and if we are really utilizing the resources as beneficial as possible with the computers. You know, I don't need a secretary or whatever to type a letter for me. I can do it right here on my computer, my iPad, or whatever. With technology, isn't it like pushing a button, writing a program? I wanted to know, I think at the last meeting, how many people in our IT department actually are programmers, write programs?
I think I can tell you now.
And that other question was also going to be, while you're looking that up, looking at summer school, the last 2 years, you know, we're talking about, we see some increases in that, and I'm sure that's from Mrs. Turner. Are we seeing where summer school is beneficial, and what is it that we're going to do? How long is summer school?
The current time we're planning for, I think it comes to a total of 12 days.
Okay, so what is it that students are going to get in summer school that they haven't,
Lisa's coming up also to join us,
you know, I see,
working with it right
have
now.
it's an increase. But what is it that the students, okay, I'm all about students. I'm here about students because if it's not the students, then there's no reason for any of us to be here, including myself. What is it that we are not doing it from August to May that we are doing in June for this increase?
Yeah, that's your last question.
Ms. Priest, the increase this year is due to, this year we had more end of course tests. The state has changed from GEE, this is the last year we've had to do GEE, and so there are more end of course tests. Last year we only had the Algebra 1 and the English 2, but this year we've added 3 more end of course tests. In addition to that, that's why we have more high school students that will have to attend this summer. We have about 57 high school seniors that must attend and take one part of the GE so that they can graduate August 27th. Also, just for the record, our summer fee program for elementary, middle at Turner and our high school Captain Tree is self-sufficient. Those fee programs pay for the administrators and the students, but that's a fee for that one. But we are mandated by Louisiana, it's an unfunded mandate, and that we remediate those students, and it's 13 days of instruction and 3 days of testing, but we have to do it, and the reason is because we've increased the number in the course testing.
Okay.
Mr. Rao. Thank you, President Ramsey. Mr. Lee, on the general fund budget summary page,
right at the beginning.
Yes.
Up when it says revenues, Roman numeral 4 there, other sources of funds, what were those funds which we don't get anymore?
Let me look real quick and I can tell you. Okay. 2 years ago, in 2010-11, we had a transfer in. Y'all remember or are familiar with our Medicare retiree drug subsidy program that our insurance department works on every year. We received a little over $1 million in that. Y'all have earmarked that to go to our OPEB trust for future retiree health care costs.
Okay.
1 year, 2010-11, y'all voted to, instead of moving that to that trust fund, to keep it in general fund for operations. We asked that we don't do that so we can build up that trust, but that 1 year you did make that request, so that's why that year was so big. The second year, 2011-12, we had some more transfers in. Those were mostly some accounting transfers for early retiree rebate program that has to do with, not early retiree. Excuse me just 1 minute, please. Mr. Watson.
Early retiree reinsurance.
Thank you. Early retiree reinsurance program. It's another similar, not the same, and we had to, the way we were mandated to account for it, we had to show it as a transfer in and then a transfer out. So the majority of that was just an accounting entry, but we did have a little bit of some other transfers in that came in, but we don't anticipate any, and rarely do we budget for transfers in.
Now, these things actually weren't budgeted, they just came in and became actual, right?
That's
Okay.
correct. That's correct.
Now, next question, down the expenditures, Roman numeral 8, other use of funds, was this part of the, target schools? Was that the other use of funds that dropped to 0 on the projected budget?
Now, that was for the last 2 years, this current year and last year. We had a loan from 10 years ago to buy, I believe, 100 buses at that time.
Yeah,
This was the
98.
payment, and this year is the last year for that payment.
Okay, thank you. One other question. I think you told me at last budget meeting, we had 85 funded vacant positions, something like that?
That is
Ballpark.
85 teaching.
Teaching funded vacant positions. Does anybody know how many total vacant positions we have, certified and classified, everybody with vacant positions that are funded?
That's a pretty good number for certified. For classified, it's a kind of a floating number. We can give it to you as of today, but if a custodian quits or retires, they usually hire them pretty quick, so it doesn't stay vacant. Like if you can't find a special ed teacher all year for 6 months, that may stay vacant for a long period of time. Most of your classified positions don't. On any, I think last week or the week before when we were talking to Human Resources, there may have been about 10 to 15, about 10 to 15 truly vacant positions on the classified side.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. I'm through.
Ms. Crawley.
I apologize, I was late. I had to be 2 places at the same time. I gave the other one a very short period of time. Could you please break down exactly the 107 general fund teachers, where they're coming from exactly?
General fund teachers.
Well,
Yes.
regular education.
Okay.
Regular education, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
regular ed teachers. We have 29, I believe, from, if you approve the K-1 staffing formula change. 9 from the 4th and 5th grade. I believe 69 from high school.
That's with the
Went to
modified
the
block?
modified block, yes.
Okay, that might have.
What's that?
It's a
add?
little short, but well, no, it's right on it, actually.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not fast at math. Okay, all right. Did we get the number of regular certified persons who are teachers who do not have a classroom or who do not give grades? Did we get that yet? I know you're working on it for me.
We are working on that, Charles Louder and Jimmy Kennedy. We've got several queries that we're gonna run to see whether or not it yields the information that you've asked for. We've got something that's close, but some of the administrators and some of the councils and librarians that you didn't want on that list still appear on the list, so we have some project to do.
Right, I don't want to cut librarians and counselors. I don't want to cut anybody, but, okay, can you give me the rationale for keeping 30 Discoveries teachers, which is $2.2 million?
Discoveries teachers, Ms. Lockett, Dr. Lockett.
They're not real special ed, but they are kind of special.
They are. Dr. Lockett, what is the rationale for keeping Discovery teachers in place?
The Discovery Teachers Program, I believe, was originated years ago under Ms. Gunn, and is continuing. It is not a special education function, therefore I don't have a lot of information for you about that. But the original, I believe, programming for it was to prepare those students for the gifted program in all of our schools. So to up our gifted numbers. So Discoveries was originally developed to help those students get above and beyond to possibly qualify and reach the criteria for gifted.
That's what I thought. That's what I was always told. I've been in the system since '83, and that's what I was always told.
If I may, just a little follow-up, those are included in the regular ed teacher.
They are?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, they are. Yes, that's right. They're those that don't give grades. That's some of what I'm talking about. They pull students out. They have classes usually. Am I right if I say about 10 children
That's
in a
correct.
class? Okay, and if we follow that philosophy all the way through, shouldn't we make a teacher-pupil ratio of 1 to 10 for all children? Wouldn't that be the best way to teach them? But yet we're going to increase our teacher-pupil ratio for children who don't quite measure up on the IQ? Is that the way we perceive the best way to go? Ms., I guess academic individual. I'm asking that. I'm not asking Mr. Finance.
Ms. Turner?
For the gifted program, it's broken down for that 1 to 10 ratio.
Yeah, not gifted. I'm talking Discoveries. And my understanding is gifted is a requirement from special ed.
Yes, it is.
Yes, ma'am.
And we don't have the luxury there of fooling with gifted. And I wouldn't, that's a little bit different. These are just your good, average students, Discoveries. They're just your best kids in the
Would 1
class.
to 10 ratio be good for all students? Yes.
And so,
Sure, if we
but
could
we are
afford.
choosing to choose, what's an IQ? Like 110 for Discoveries? Do you know the IQ that they make on the test
No, I'd have to.
for
look at
Discoveries?
it.
Someone knows. Someone has the cut off. It's not really that much above average.
It's about, I think it's about 120 is what the average is for
Is
the
it that
studies.
high?
But what they do is they look at it and they're all screened differently. The schools look at the test scores, they look at the standardized test scores that come in, and from that list, they look at a couple of other areas, and then they determine whether to refer that child for a gift. So they go through a screening process on the school level.
Okay, well, stay right here, please. So with that, you don't really have to have an exact IQ. You can just have a teacher recommendation and good grades, is that right?
It goes through grades, teacher recommendation, test scores, and some valuable amount of information that you can refer those kids.
For Discoveries, not Gateway. I don't want to even discuss Gateway, because that's not on the radar. I want to just discuss $2.2 million where we're teaching children on a 1 to 10 and there's no grade. And it's a lot of disruption for the children who are left in the classroom. It's a lot, that's how I see that. I mean, I taught it, I was a 4th grade teacher, and then you'd get your 10 children to leave the classroom, and then the principal would cancel Discoveries, and you're now you got a whole different plan to do. That's my point in discoveries. I mean, or anything like, what did we discuss? Mentor teachers are grants, but then there's some other kind of teacher.
Many of the mentor teachers that are in place now are grant-funded positions.
Right,
Is
so-
that not correct, Ms. Turner? Yes.
So we eliminate that from the budget. I mean, we don't
It
we
does
don't
not
food that.
impact the gen fund budget.
Okay, mentor teachers, but then if there are there some mentor teachers who are not in the budget? Not in the, a grant, who are in general fund?
I'm not aware of any mentor teacher that's not grant-funded at this time.
Okay. Well, my whole point in all of this is to save as many of those 29 teachers and the 9 4th and 5th grade teachers as possible. In any way, if you can substitute a discoveries teacher for a 1st grade teacher, that would be the most logical. Now, I know we have lots of reasons to not do that, but the most logical thing to me would be that. All right. Transportation. I'm sorry I didn't know about the transportation meeting today. That would have been good if they were working on the budget. I'm not sure they were, but I would like to know when all the meetings are again. We do 30,000 extra trips a year. Yeah, I know. I couldn't find my audit. I looked around. I wanted my audit. And I know they made some recommendations. Has the committee talked about consolidating this? Like at a school in my district, a high school in my district, they may go and pick up the cheerleaders after school, which I've never heard of before coming to Caddo. If your child had the honor of being on the dance line or cheerleading, you got your child there and back. I don't understand all of this, and if they don't, we just read about a child at Magnet High who wanted to score great on her ACT, a 28, and she lives on the other side of town, low socioeconomics. She rode public transportation every morning to get to school early, and her mother, who is disabled, rode public transportation to meet her there, and then they rode public transportation to get to the public library. I mean, so if you can do it for academics, surely it would be real easy to provide your transportation for luxuries like dance line, football, basketball, if you want your child to participate. So in our audit, it asked us to combine so they wouldn't do 3 trips to the school. One to pick up the dance line and take them home, the next to pick up the football players and take them home, and the next to pick up the band or whatever.
Ms. Crawley, you're running out of questions, aren't you?
No, sir. You wouldn't believe how many questions I have.
But those are comments, not questions.
No, I didn't. No,
Okay.
I asked.
You're
interrupting my question.
One
Excuse
more
me.
question, and then your
I
6
was just
minutes
getting
are
to
up.
the question. I understand
I know.
about 5 minutes.
One
My
more.
question is, have we implemented this and reflected
Oh.
this in the audit? If you let me finish my question, I just wanted them to know what the heck I was talking about.
Stop me without doing something.
I know, and we can stay here all night, or I won't vote on a budget that I don't know what I'm voting on.
We got a question now.
Yes, Ms. Crawley, we saw it in the audit, and we've addressed it as under review. We want to be sensitive to the needs of the students. We're trying to combine as many of the trips as we can, but I guess you have to understand, the football practice may not end at the same time, the band practice may not end at the same time that the cheerleading practice ends. So there are things that we do have to be cognizant of, but again, we are looking at that and seeing what we can do to combine those trips.
I would say, it would be better to inconvenience the child or parent who's participating in that activity than all the taxpayers and the 26 children who are in kindergarten or 1st grade not learning to read. I'm just saying we're weighing things here. What's most important to us?
No. Thank you, Ms. Crawley.
And so it is not reflected in our budget. Any cuts, any of those savings for transportation is
Thank
not
you.
reflected.
Thank you.
I need my answer. Don't I get an answer?
He's answered one that All right, last answer.
Yeah, the 30,000 field trips that we do last year and we did year before, it should still reflects 30,000 trips coming up this year.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have another special ed question. And I'm sorry I'm late too. The doctors tend to want to keep you all day. Looked like I heard you say something to the effect that you had teachers, once you consolidated and combined, you had some teachers and had an aide and 2 children.
Yes.
Okay. And maybe it just didn't go right through the computer right. But then does that still exist?
No, so not based upon the numbers. We have deadline numbers today, and that's what we submitted.
Okay.
So we've changed it and modified, look at the number of students that's coming in next year to synchronize what that looks like for next year.
Okay, well, my point is having to put the specialists back in the classroom. And while that's just something it's hard for me to get my hands around because they have so many other duties. And who will do those duties? Who will meet with principals for IEPs? Who will talk to parents? Who will do those things?
In some schools, our principals are already meeting with those parents and they sit in on some of the IEP meetings. So the principals and the evaluating teams will have to pick up some of the workload on that. We plan to have lead teachers and we plan to pay them extra per month by looking at IEPs when they do extra activities that we need to do for special education. But they'll also have mentor and support from the remaining instructional specialists and supervisor and professional development specialists and special ed.
Okay, this past year, you were short on specialists, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and we had so many specialists already budgeted.
Yes.
And so I understand that what we're gonna try to do is not budget those that we didn't, we'll just take those out of the budget.
Take some of them out of the budget and then still move some back to the classroom setting.
No, I'm not talking about the bodies, I'm talking about the ones that didn't, the positions that
Yes.
we did not fill.
They are taken out of the budget, yes.
So we're taking those out of the budget. Alone, about how much of a savings is taking those positions out of the budget? Just the ones that we budgeted and we didn't have a body to fill.
Probably in the ballpark of about 300,000. She says there was 4 of them.
Oh, it was only 4 instructors, it was 4 of them?
That were there.
Yeah.
Five.
5?
Yes.
5. Okay, 5. 350 to 400.
Okay. So we're gonna put that back in the budget, and we're gonna use some of the remaining specialists to fill classroom vacancies? Is that what we said, Willie? That's what I'm trying to understand. I mean, I may not be saying it right, but that's what I
What
understand.
we were looking at, Mr. Pearson, was we left 5 in the budget in general fund. We were looking at ways to see if we could find some more to put back in the budget. And it's not reflected in here yet, but it will be by tomorrow. Looking at other combinations, maybe there's some overlapping positions that we've identified in recent days that we can eliminate some of and use the funds saved there to put, right now it's up to 4 more ISs back in their position. So that would take it from 5 to 9 so far. We will continue to look to see if there's any way we can find funding or additional reductions in other places to keep it budget neutral and find ways to add more if we can.
Well, I'm not as concerned perhaps about adding ISs as I am about putting current one,
That's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about, putting them, restoring them, basically.
okay, so now, in terms of, because I would rather hire a teacher, if we could find one in special ed, to hire a teacher, if we have a vacant position, than to remove, put the IS people there, because they're in a position to be able to assist and help almost anywhere and all the time. That's, maybe I'm looking at it in a warped sense, but I mean, I know we need to save and I want us to save, but I don't want us to not be able to provide services,
Right.
you know, especially for those who really need those services. And most of the time, you have parents who really on top of their children in special ed. And we really need somebody who has, you know, access and who has the ability to be able to service those parents and those children. So,
One thing to keep in mind too, Mr. Pearson, is I'm just not finding special ed teachers anywhere.
I know.
In recent years, I don't know how many we have this year, but in recent years, we've had up to 50 or 60 vacant special ed teachers because we just can't find people to fill those positions.
Well, I understand. Well, thank you. That's about it for that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Ms. Bell.
Okay. And I get my research. Mr. Lee, okay, I talked to Mr. Lee. I found out the real numbers at the charter schools. Lanier has 146 students. I got the real numbers.
Okay.
Real numbers. Linwood, 267. We heard on the radio, TV, I listen to the media just like everybody else. 600 here, 6. So that means it's 146 and 267 comes 413. Might be off some. Though that's what we have in the budget that we're going to give when they take that money from us, right? You can't do it like that. I mean,
No, ma'am.
you always say to us, I thought this, that every time we lose a student, we lose $5,000, right? Whatever
A little bit more than that, yeah.
Okay, just whatever. So that means 146. Lanier, they keep the 146 next year. That means we're going to lose the money for 146. Because you said that you're going on numbers right now of what we have in the system.
No, ma'am, not when it comes to Linwood and Lanier.
Okay, well, okay, I'm not saying. But you're basing our 41,000 on the money, the numbers here now, right?
Yes.
Okay, now why can't we base this on them until August or something? What's the difference?
Because that's two things. First of all, that's not what the state says they have.
I'm so sick of the state, I don't know what to do.
And the state doesn't give us the money to begin with for Linwood and Lanier.
Oh,
They
okay.
withhold it from us and give it directly to Linwood.
That's where we getting the, okay, question. So that's the reason we hear 600 on the TV and we actually looking at 267. Now we talk. This is a question. That number come to you when?
We get it with each time they do a new MFA.
Okay, so that means we do it
spring
before
usually.
October 1st.
Yes.
How do we know that, since they keep it so quiet from us? I'm just saying, how do we know? When they telling now it's only 267, that means they had 600 in September of last year, 267, 400 students been sent back to Caddo Parish or sent home or something. So that means the only one that means Mr. Lee, within our 5 minutes. So Mr. Lee, what we're saying, we just have to go in the honesty of the charter schools. When they say to us, we have 400 students in school, and here at the end of the year, I'm looking at 267, which from 600, and 300 with 146. You see what I'm saying? So I'm saying some kind of way, and I'm gonna talk to I think our lawyer need to find this, some kind of agreement we need to know what is the actual number, and somebody need to know the exact number that we get. Instead of they just fake putting us some numbers up there. This shocked me because I was looking for by at least 400 to be at Linwood. Okay, so now the real number is 267 now. For Linwood, I want this to go in the paper. and Lanier 146. So that means 400 students from Linwood been sent home somewhere, or back to us, which we'll take. Okay, I just want to make sure that, so you telling me that the budget for that will not, so that means that's a continual thing that we need to know about.
Yes, ma'am. I have to budget that part of the MFP based on what the state provides me, because
We are
that's
not
what they're gonna
equal.
withhold from us.
That is not fair and it's not equal to us. You know what I'm saying? But okay, that's what I want to know, Board, to let you know why we can't budget that, and we'll be listening to some honest people, I hope. That includes the Magnolia School too. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hooks.
Thank you, President Ramsey. Dr. Dawkins, can you tell me the name of the position that will be cut at the central office level?
We can give you a list of them. I have the names right in front of me.
Well, I need to know, because I'm like Miss Brown. I can't support this budget if I don't have any answers.
In the budget, I think they list, in one of our sessions, I know we gave a list of positions. I'm not saying here or not.
1 second, Dr. Dawkins. Yeah.
Maybe can Ms. Turner answer that? Well, I asked Mr. Lee earlier, and he said he couldn't give me the answer.
That's what Dr. Dawkins, what he had asked in your absence, one of the questions had to do with the instructional supervisors, where we said we were going to reduce 4, and he wanted to know
You
who
know
was
specifically which for?
Yeah.
We haven't determined that yet.
Okay, when will that be determined? Will that be determined before we approve this budget?
Probably in the next couple of days, yes.
Well, we'll approve the budget, we're supposed to approve the budget tomorrow. And the reason I'm asking this question, because there may be an important position that you're eliminating that we might need to keep.
Well, all the positions are critically important.
I understand that,
But
I understand
but we
that.
have to make some choices, and whether or not we all agree on them, I don't know.
Well,
We just had-
that's why we need to know what positions are being cut.
For instructional supervisors, I can get, well, I'll give you as close as I can by tomorrow, but if not, just for instructional supervisors.
Mr. If I may, in just talking about whether or not to adopt this budget, a budget is a fluid document. It changes throughout the year, and it hasn't happened as much in the last couple of years as it used to, but board member or staff can make recommendations to add to the budget at any time. And obviously, it takes the vote of the board to do that, but if you get that and you feel there's a position that's critical, it can be brought any time after this budget is adopted. We don't have to hold up the adoption of the budget if we think there's one position we're not clear on.
Okay, thank you. Because I'm running out of time. My next question, let's go back to planning. Are you, Mr. A, may I address the board attorney?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Abrams, are you saying that we're not going to give teachers their planning period? Period?
Ms. Hooks, my comments were based on legality. It had nothing to do with whether or not they were going to give the planning period. My understanding that what was submitted by administration was that they would do 90 minutes.
Give me a short version.
90 minutes every other day. Okay? And my review of what these policy says, you have 30 minutes that are given to elementary school students. Our policy never had anything in there about middle school and high school. So that is something that the board would be enacting if it's going to provide those 45 minutes every day or 90 minutes every other day. The other thing is that, and I said that the requirement that you do it would be based upon if it was funded.
Okay,
by
thank
the
you,
state.
thank you, Mr. Abrams. I can't support this if we're going to take some time away. Teachers, they don't have time to eat yet, only have 20 minutes to eat, and then you're talking about taking planning. I can't support this.
I thought it was adding some planning time where it wasn't there. That's what I thought was in
Not to, if you're gonna teach a day, you said you're gonna teach 2 days. We're talking about block scheduling, aren't we?
What I'm getting at is that the policy didn't require any planning time, and what the board is suggesting is that it do 90 minutes every other day. So to me, you're adding time where you wasn't necessarily required to do it. So that was my point. I don't know what they do during the day. I'm just going by what the statute says.
Okay, as long as we're adding time, okay. I'm good with that. I need to ask Dr. Lockett a question. Dr. Lockett, you think you can look at your budget again? You have cut it very lean. Can you add a little more fat onto it? Can you take a good look at it again?
I've looked at it so long and so hard, even way before I brought it to Mr. Lee and Dr. Dawkins. IDEA was cut to $7.7 million. Salaries and benefits alone run a little over $7.5 million. So I've cut, and not only that, we have to spend 15% of my IDEA money in early intervening services. So there are some other positions as well that are being scaped out as well to make up. So it's not just those positions, but there's some other positions as well that will be sliced off.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Ms. Trammell?
Okay, Mr. President. May I speak to Dr. Lockett? Dr. Lockett. All right. I'm just a little confused. I want to make sure I understand what I asked earlier. If we send the specialists back to the individual schools, I was thinking maybe that we could put them in a position where they would work almost parallel to what they are doing now. But that's not what we're doing. We're putting them in the classroom.
They could possibly go into the classroom or strategically put at those schools with the most support needs.
All right,
and that principal will be able to assist them in working through that situation.
Okay, now I see a nice group of nice-looking ladies and gentlemen out here. Now, how many people are we talking about other than the 9 that we're saving?
About 13.
About 13 people.
Mm-hmm.
And how many high-populated SPED areas do we have? Schools, I mean, that would need an extra body?
I would say probably about 24 to 25.
Okay, so, well, this morning I was approached by a principal just to help me understand. And the principal told me that he had 5 positions, that he was overstaffed. And I guess Dr. Robinson need to come up here to help me with this, that he was overstaffed and he would be losing 5 teachers. He said if he could keep 2 out of the 5, he didn't mind 3. So I'm like, we're trying to decide which is crucial, what we need to do. How do we decide placement with the 13?
We look at the number of IEPs.
Okay.
In my IDA budget, I actually kept 4 positions, which are program specific for like speech and hearing and those sites. We'll have to look at behavior concerns, those schools who may have been close to staying on the borderline of CAP.
Okay.
Those ISs will be kind of strategically placed there. But the principals on either way will have to start helping out to ODR those IEPs and be an important factor in that. And that's actually a state regulation. The role of an instructional specialist has been ODR, but as you know, most of them have 3 to 4 schools and sometimes 5 and 6, but one of them for sure. Mm-hmm. Which means they go from school to school and they sign saying this school will be held liable to this. However, they are not there to really provide the informational support. So the principal really needs to be the key in that because they are the caretaker. When anytime we go to due process, we go back to the principal to answer those questions that need to be held.
Okay. All right, Dr. Robinson, with the 5 teachers, I don't have to give you a location, but with the 5 teachers, if the principal really feel that there is a need to keep two of the 5, how do we handle a situation like we've got to get rid of the 5?
Correlation between or collaboration between the principal and the director will assist us with placement. I had a conversation with Mr. Abrams just prior to this meeting because we have some legislation that affects placement that is at limbo at this time, whether or not the decisions would be made based on performance or whether or not the decisions would be made based on hire date. And I will be, or HR will be advised by him as far as those placements are concerned.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. All right. We keep talking about the gifted and discoveries. You know, I found that most parents really feel overwhelmed when their kids are placed in the gifted program. Now, sometimes we cut off our nose and spite our face to do stuff. If we aim at the gifted program, what impact would that have on this school system?
I know we have 31, I believe, 31 discoveries teachers. How many gifted, talented teachers do you have?
31.5.
What happens is with the gifted program, we have basically 5 instructional specialists that serve those students. I know in some of our schools, and I know in the long range committee meeting, we've been talking about how can we increase the number of students at our schools, and we're currently having a discussion about maybe opening up a center or a site for those schools possibly to be bused and work with through transportation to see if the SPS scores. The biggest fear for the principal was that the scores, once a child found out that they're gifted, they're moved from one particular maybe low performance school and automatically go to a magnet school. So right now we're working very closely with a team of people to see how we can open up a different site and have those gifted teachers who are over back there.
Okay.
So the home school would get the SPS scores instead.
All right. I'm going to act like Ms. Bell now. Just give me a minute. My question is, what do you think would be the impact, not with the budget, but with the parents and the general public if we aim at the gifted program? We do stuff first and we do it hastily, and then we look back and say, oh, wow, we shouldn't have done that. Now,
it would be a significant impact. As a matter of fact, a lot of our discovery classes are actually in our lower performance schools.
okay.
Now, some of the difficulty has been those schools not referring those children to the gifted program. And that's where probably what we're working on that through Long Range Planning Committee and trying to develop a way to get more students. And the deal with the principals that they don't want to lose those kids to the magnet schools. So if we work on a process to maybe have a feeder site, for an example, Oak Park, we've already worked with her. She said she didn't mind having a feeder site, maybe for all of the inner city schools around that area to be bused in. Then that would give us an opportunity to retain gifted, maybe a gifted teacher and a half for a position, but those scores will go back to the home district school. So it actually opened up the door. If you attack discoveries, it would also limit the number of kids you probably would have referred to gifted.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Rao. Thank you, President Ramsey. I just want to clarify something. Y'all were talking about field trips a while ago. How many field trips?
These are all
Just
all
trips.
extra trips other than
Extra
other
trips.
than the route to and from school. It's any other athletic runs, midday runs.
How many did you say?
30,000.
30,000 extra trips. That's 166 trips a school day. I mean, that, how do we do that? That's 428 trips per school. I mean, that's other than the normal routes.
Other than normal routes. That's your midday runs, that's your after school runs, that's your athletic runs, that's a lot of night trips. A lot of night trips.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that number is accurate, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Always has the
Yeah. And how much, who pays for all that? Yeah.
Daily ops trips, which are academic in nature, we run about 16 to 17,000 of those trips. Do probably around 5,000 field trips, close to 9,000 athletic trips, and then we have special ed and Title I trips, which maybe run about 2,500.
And how many did you say with the regular trips? Regular school?
Well, daily operations in regard to
Yeah.
trips for academic purposes around 16, 17,000.
Okay, now, now you said the field trip, now we talked about in committee that they pay, how much for that, $30?
$30 for the use of the bus.
$30 for the bus. And then who buys the gas? Huh?
That gas.
Okay, in other words, they're paying, okay. What if it takes more than $30 worth of gas?
We charge more like when you go
Okay.
out of the area.
Okay, so we are charging, do we charge for athletic trips also?
We do.
Okay, and we charge for field trips, athletic trips, anything other than normal bus runs we charge for.
We're not charging for the academic trips.
No, we don't do that, but anything other than normal, getting kids to school and
Yes.
home, we charge.
Yes, sir.
Does our fees that we charge cover our expenditures?
As he mentioned that $30 is for the, as close as it can be for the operation of the bus. Doesn't include the salary of the bus driver.
Okay, we should pay.
Charges them for that.
Okay. I got the picture. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Crawley.
So, do you have a figure for that? I'm gonna pick up on that since we're there. 14,000 trips, field trips, athletics. What minus what we collect, what is the balance of the expense?
Just to give you an example, for athletics, we run probably $145,000 a year for bus driver salaries. In reference to just field trips, we run probably $150,000 a year for bus driver salaries. Academic trips in nature run about $250,000 a year for bus driver salaries.
Wait a minute. Okay, academics
250,000.
50,000, and you said for field trips it's what?
Around $150,000 a year.
All right, and we have gone all this time and not looked at for our budget this, rather than cutting 38 classroom teachers. I mean, that's not to you. That's what when I was calling all these people, principals and such, the question they asked me is, why don't you decide what your schedule's going to be in February instead of May? Because the poor principals, now you want them to know what the schedule is? Do you have an answer to that, why we don't do it in February?
No, I don't, but as I mentioned
Well,
with the high school principals in one of the meetings that we had with them, that is a plan I have actually for, if we can work it out prior to Christmas break, is start those talks about what kind, and with academics here as well, but to talk about what kind of scheduling we need to have, because we may not have the numbers exact, but we'll know, have a pretty good idea what kind of shape we're in, what we can expect from the state, as far as funding, our revenue and stuff like that.
But unless something is just horribly drastic, it's not, the kind of figure that we anticipate. We knew in February that we were going to have this kind of deficit, and that we were going to have to decide, put our priorities, what is our schedule? That's kind of like a first priority, and then we go, how do we pay for the schedule that everybody's agreed to, or the large majority. Do you have any idea who came up with, I missed it last time, the modified block schedule? How did this come about? Because I haven't talked to anybody who thinks that's a good idea, principal or anybody. Who came up with that? Dr. Dawkins, please.
I think it came up through various discussions on what the options were. Certainly, there's a price tag on block scheduling, and how do you get close to that, as close as you can get to it. while maintaining some of the block. So I
Okay.
think it came from some of those discussions, so I don't think it's attributed to any one person. But there
Okay.
were a lot of people in the room.
Did they weigh modified block with 7 period? Because I know you gave us 7 period first.
I think they did. I think they did.
And did modified block, when we polled all the principals, did it poll higher than 7 period when we polled the principals and the teachers? Because that's not the feedback I'm getting.
I can't answer the teacher's part because I think Dr. Robinson.
She'll get that tonight, midnight.
But with the feedback you're getting obviously is not the feedback we're getting either.
Right, I want y'all's
So
feedback.
obviously, we talk to people face to face and we talk to all of them in the room. And so certainly everybody's not happy about some of the changes, but everybody knows there has to be some changes. So that's where we
Well, they
are.
were weighing the 7 period, Dr.
Certainly,
Dawkins,
they've looked-
with that, and they said, okay, if we gotta do the modified block, let's do 7 period.
Well, I didn't hear him just say that. Go ahead, Ms. Charles.
I know it's a mix, because one principal said, I can't do 7 periods. I'm going,
We
You
talked
were
to all
doing
the principals.
6.
We talked to all the principals, Ms. Crawley. How many, did you talk to all of them?
no, sir, I have not, but that's why I'm asking you the question. Yes, sir.
But that's why I'm answering, we talked to all of them.
Okay. The other thing is when I go to page 1, I can kind of understand page 3 when we number of budgeted positions. The ratio to employees or directors or whatever, central office people to clerks seems to vary tremendously. And attendance department seems to have a low ratio of other folks to clerks, to clerical. Is that not somewhere we could look at reducing
Well, I would like to get
the attendance?
their input in that. I will give you, if I can, use a different example that looks very similar.
Mhm.
If you look at human resources, you have, if you look at the directors and the personnel administrators, leave out EAP for right now, that's really kind of a different piece of it. But if you look at that, you've got 5 administrators and 19 clerical, and if you just look at that on paper, that looks, why do you need 19 clerical for only those few administrators? We're not talking just secretaries here. Clerical is really not a very good name for this anymore. This includes anything from your retirement specialists that are in human resources to the clerk that runs the ASOP system to make sure we've got subs in the classroom to other positions like that. We're not just talking secretaries to administrators.
Right, I understood that. That's why I didn't say that page. I didn't go there.
It could be similar in attendance.
Well,
but I'd
I'm
like to get
asking
their input.
to ask attendants if they can do some cuts. There are no cuts in the attendance department. That's what I'm asking. Can there be some cuts, particularly since we're moving to the nice new facility? It seemed like to me there could be some consolidation. Or we're not moving until we vote on it, but whatever. Do you see that there could be any cuts here in pupil support services with clerical or anything? Maybe even attendance supervisors. I mean, I know that everybody says my job is important. I mean, but let's just, the bottom line is the teacher's job's the most important. And they were starting there to cut the most. Okay? So rank it with a teacher. Can any of these
Well, actually,
be
if
substituted for
I
a teacher?
could, if I rank it with our population, because we have to have so many attendance supervisors per 750 students.
There is a ratio that you are fit.
For supervisors.
Supervisors, that's attendance supervisors.
Right.
So that's why you can't cut 6. The 6 can't lower.
Well, actually, we did lose one position,
It's not listed.
but we were by attrition.
So it's really going to be, for the next year, it's proposed at 5?
No, it's what it is now. It's what it has been.
How do you lose one if you have what you had last year? I'm sorry.
We were in the process of beginning to interview for one, but that because of the ombudsman staffing and because that plus our AMI that we now service, our AMI kids, Rutherford House, Alexander, our alternative population, in addition to over 7,000 court referrals that we have done, which only the supervisors can do, and that clerical staff must prepare those referrals. That's a lot of what encompasses our time. Also, we're in court 2 days a week. We're in court in the morning for truancy, on Mondays, and then in the afternoon for mass conferences. And the attendance department, we do not do PR2s or anything of that nature, but when those supervisors are in court, then our hearings at the schools that we cover still must go on. So, so we have a broad spectrum of...
Well, I understand, but you're really going to keep the 6 you had last year. But it's just an individual person, different. But we're not lowering the number of attendance supervisors.
Not
Okay. Okay. All right. If you rank that at 1, I understand the ratio. I'm trying to get the 38 teachers back from K and K through 5. So 30 would be discoveries. One plus is conference travel of $100,000. You take that off and start at August 1st, because when I was checking around, some people have already paid for conferences in July, and we don't want to waste, I guess. It's going to cost us more, but commitments have been made. So about $100,000 conference. Okay, so that gets us to 31 teachers.
One more question.
Is it legal? What does the state give us in sick days and UPR? I missed it. What's the state? Is it 10?
I believe it is 10
total.
10 and 10.
Is it okay? Could we cut 2 days? We don't want to encourage teachers to be sick anyway. And I talk to people that I know, and I love them, but they say, these are my sick days, I get to take them. I go, no, if your house catches on fire, you don't get your fire insurance money back. If your house does not catch on fire, you don't get your insurance you paid in. These days are insurance. You don't go take them because they're days, because they're your days. They're not your days.
So you suggesting
Cut 2 sick days.
Cut from 10 to 8 sick days?
No, we have 12 UPR.
12 to
Whatever
10.
the state law is.
Okay. Is it?
Whatever, follow the state law, no fluff.
Mr. Abrams, we have ability to do that? If we can, I mean.
And
I'll have to look at it, but I believe we follow the state law exactly.
Exactly. I always thought we did. Always thought that was in our package as a reason to come to Capitol.
We'll review our policy. We'll review our policy as well. Because if it's just policy driven, we'll certainly bring it back to the board.
Okay, if the 12 is, 2 UPR and 10 sick days, okay. But if we can change it in any way,
Okay.
that might be a teacher.
Ms. Trammell.
Thank you, Mr. Ramsey. There are a few things that I find to be mind-boggling, and you're going to help me with this because, sometimes you can hear people say things, and she just brought it to mind, Ms. Moore, when she stepped to the podium. Once upon a time, you could work for 8 supervisors, 1 director, no computers, and you got the job done. Now, this is what's mind-boggling to me. Now you've got a boss, a secretary, a boss, a clerk, and there's always a problem with getting the job done. Now, can somebody just help me with this one? Because what I can't understand is I cannot see with a computer in front of you, why is it that you can't work for more than 1 person? I mean, this is just a general question, and maybe it's over my head because...
No, ma'am, that's it. I mean, we have situations like that in the instructional area where different superintendents, different supervisors share the secretary or clerical person. We do that to a small degree.
Uh-huh.
We do that.
It's what is it? A small degree.
Yes,
of
to a
work.
small degree, we are doing that. We have supervisors in the instructional area that share the secretary.
Okay, let me ask,
And in the attendance area, I'm told.
okay. Well, I'm sort of thinking my way through a couple of minutes of my 5 minutes to get it to, for me to absorb it. I spoke about overtime, and it's still the thing that I'm still thinking about. We had a superintendent at one time that told us if we couldn't work from 8 to 4:30, then that was our problem. We started 8 o'clock and we would go home at 4:30. That ended your workday. Now I don't know how that works now, Dr. Dawkins. Have we ever come to that crossroad where we decide that from 8 to 4:30 is your workday, and if you're working it effectively, you can get your job done. But it seems like we got some people that I'll work on that later. Thank you.
Ms. Priest?
Thank you, President Ramsey. And Mr. Lee, I'm not sure if you can answer this, somebody else can. We keep talking about these PR2s. PR2s. If Ms. Bell, Ms. Green, and I are in the office and I'm out, and Ms. Green takes up and does my work for that day, is it true that Ms. Green is filling out a PR2? Doing my...
I don't believe so, no. If she is required to stay late to do your work and her work, and she exceeds 40 hours in a week total, then yes, I'm sure a PR2 is done at some point to pay her overtime, because if she works more than 40 hours in a week. But if she's just simply doing her job, and she's doing it in the same 8 hours that she normally would, but she's picking up your responsibility, she should not be getting...
Can we check into that, please? Okay. The other thing, do we have a cost estimate on what absenteeism is costing this district per year? I mean, full.
Yes, $5 million.
$5 million. That's what we're saying it is costing this district.
Is that just the salary? You probably add a little bit to it for Medicare on top of that. So, but that's a majority of it. Now, bear in mind again, as I said, some of it I don't want to say is necessary, but some of it when you've got bus drivers driving routes, and sub bus drivers driving full-time routes because you can't fill them.
Well, we need to do something about it. I'm so sorry.
It's kind of like
I am so sorry. This is a district, and I want people to have jobs. But we are not obligated to provide jobs and people don't come to work. We are obligated to provide an education to students, to kids, to children, students. And that's a loophole, and we've got to correct that, and that's a statement. Okay.
Ms. Priest, if I may interrupt you, you're exactly right. There's been a long-term policy here, as long as I've been here, some I never heard of.
But if we're not enforcing it,
well,
we need to deal with it.
You are enforcing it, but I think it needs to be looked at, because 6 days if you're absent, you bring a doctor's excuse.
Yeah, starting
rest of the world, it's 3 days.
There's something wrong with that.
Well, it's board policy.
Okay, well, we need to really, okay. Next question. And I know we are avoiding this issue, which is the big elephant in the room. And the big elephant in the room is health care and retirement. And of course, we're kicking the can down the road for this 2013-14 budget. We are kicking the can down the road. We are avoiding this. And basically what we're doing is covering ourselves up and digging a hole that's going to be deeper and deeper and deeper. And we keep talking about, we've already said that our enrollment is down, but our staffing went up. In the real world, does that truly happen? Okay. If we are continuing to add employees, add positions, and we already are dealing with escalating retirement and health care, and we're continuing talking about enrollment is down. We have not seen a big increase in enrollment, and we're talking about adding positions, adding people. And we've got to deal with healthcare. We're already, how much did healthcare increase? Is it 27%? Or retirement,
Retirement went up to
27%. But we still want to increase our positions? What does that do to this district?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to answer that.
I would like for you to just say it.
It cripples us. I mean, it is a tough, it puts us in a tremendous financial disadvantage.
We're not dealing with reality, and we're not dealing with the real world. And as a board member, I'm here to make a decision that's going to be financially prudent to keep the district solvent so that it can operate and provide quality education for children. You know, it's not about the other things. Thank you.
Okay, we have 3 more people on the board, and I started by my watch, and it was slower than what's up here. So we have 10 minutes left, so I would like to give each of these 3 folks 3 minutes. Mr. Pearson, Mr. Hooks, and Ms. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I won't take 3 minutes. How could we find out? Is there a way to find out what overage in terms of personnel are we hiring? I mean, if our enrollment comes down and our employment goes up, then how do we find out where that is?
Well, a lot of it was in programs we've put in. 2 or 3 years ago when we put in the AB block, that increased our high school staffing a little over 100 positions. So that didn't help as far as this ratio goes. I believe we reduced, HR helped me out, was it kindergarten, 1st grade? We reduced it a few years, 5 years ago or so?
It was 20, we went to 22.
Which grade levels was that?
Yeah, we went to the 1 to 22 and made it a hard number.
Yes.
That was
So
last year, wasn't it?
that added some positions to the
We did
budget
that
as
last
well.
year.
We did that, we talked about it last year, but that's been in place for a few years now.
I thought we just did the hard number last year.
The hard code in 22?
At least 2 years.
At least 2 years. At least 2 years.
Yeah, it's been in place, but we just really voted the hard number last year, I believe. But anyway,
But that added,
I would be interested to, and I know it's difficult to find out, to say, well, you know, this is our person to staff ratio, the children ratio, and find out where you need to take them away. But it is worth taking a look at, but I know the difficulty in trying to find out where it is, and that's a charge I think we all need to, staff needs to take, it needs to have, so that we can be more prudent in what we do. Well, you want to respond?
It's not difficult at all, Mr. Pearson. We run an over-under report pretty frequently, and we have that as current as last week. I assume that's the last time you ran it. And we can identify the overage, that is the staffing above the staffing allotment. It's usually called the additional CPSB. You know that you usually approve so many contingency positions, and they are assigned based on need. So we can identify them pretty
You
easily.
can identify people.
I can identify positions.
Yeah, the positions.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. The other thing, one other thing, it's just a statement. Back during the olden days, Dr. McCullough, we used to get out of school at 2:15, and children could walk home and still be in daylight during the period of time after the time changes in the fall. When we start getting out at 3 o'clock and a little later, 3:30, then during that fall period, those children who were walking home would not even leave school before dark, especially basketball players and football players as well. I think that kind of precipitated the way we went with taking kids home and the busing issue about taking the children home, because I'm sure at that time we had some incidents and things that would happen, and we didn't want to see our girls walking down the street, you know, in the darkness after school, you know, with nobody chaperoning them. So that again is another ticklish situation, but just to have some history about it, I thought would give you some point of reference. Thank you.
Mr. Hooks, excuse me.
Thank you, President Ramsey. Need Dr. Lockett to come up. I got one more question for her. And I want to tell you, you've done an outstanding job answering these questions. I know what you're going through. But I want to know one thing. How can we eliminate, you say, positions, and then you hire and plus paying this person extra, a lead teacher? It doesn't make sense.
The lead teachers would actually be regular classroom teachers. For those persons who are already certified, for example, instructional specialists going back to the classroom setting, because they will actually be going back, their actually time on the clock will actually reduce, but they'll be frozen at their 10-month salary. So they're actually already making extra when they go back to the classroom setting.
Oh, okay. I told you you did a good job. Thank you, Mr. Ramsey.
Ms. Bell.
My question is not a question, a statement also, Mr. Lee. You said there would be no layoffs, right?
We have not talked about any
That's right.
layoffs
These
yet.
IS and whoever, like supervisors, all will go back into the classroom or wherever that principal wants them. And you said their salary will stay the same. Okay. Now, this is what and that's good because we're looking at attrition. Just like Ms. Crowder talking about 31 teachers, I'm sure some of those 31 will be in attrition and retired, so you'll be able to replace those teachers. I'm about the children and employees keeping jobs, regardless of where they go, long as they keep a job, okay? And that's what I'm looking at. I just want to make sure you say they will have jobs, whatever they, I mean, that's it. I'm just not talking about the IS, I'm talking about supervisors, directors, whatever on this group, they will have jobs. But they, and I guess change is coming. But because all of us started, whatever we are doing now, we started from the classroom, regardless of what, being a principal and all. So what I'm saying, I'm just about them keeping their job, keeping their money, and we just have to go with change. But I'm just praying that those IS or whoever, even the supervisors, will be able to help out that principal. Because I'm about test scores going up and those children learning things. And the more help you have on campus, better it's going to be. So that's what I'm about. And I want everybody to understand, I'm about the children and employees.
Good question.
Is that a good question?
No, it was not a question. Just to recap, the budget, as always, is a working document. The current proposal that will be brought tomorrow involves us overspending about $4.2 million. Staff continues to work on some adjustments with instructional specialists versus teachers, but those changes will have little or no impact on the budget as it is proposed now. It would be an instructional specialist position versus a teacher's position. Some of the other sidebar issues that will continue to be worked on in committee will include your health care cost issues, retirement issues, sick day issues. Well, there's some policy issues that may be surrounding that. Attendance issues, all of these will continue to be worked on within the committee, and as we reach a resolution, whether it be a policy or whatever, then at that time the board will, a recommendation we've made and action will be taken. I appreciate all of y'all making the effort to be here. A lot of good questions were asked, comments. And tomorrow evening is our regular session. It starts at 4:30. Appreciate it. Meeting's adjourned.